This is the Dark Illumination Report podcast with R.J. Womack.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining me for this episode of the podcast. These first few episodes are going to be an introduction of sorts to kind of help you understand who I am and what I believe, so that you can decide whether this podcast is the right podcast for you. My main reason for doing this podcast is because I feel that religious Satanism is being overshadowed by other forms of Satanism. Right now it's very popular in some circles to basically shame people into feeling bad about believing in Satan, to make them feel stupid for what they believe. This show is exactly the opposite. We want to encourage people to embrace their belief in Satan and take pride in who and what they are. If anyone ever tries to give you a hard time about what you believe, just remember one thing. People have believed in Satan as an entity for far longer than they have believed in him as a symbol. One of the things that makes my approach to Satanism different than others is that I did not get involved in Satanism as a result of reading the Satanic Bible. I didn't read the Satanic Bible until I was 15. By that time, I had already been a Satanist for a couple of years. I got involved in Satanism because I prayed to Satan at age 12, and I got a response that convinced me that Satan existed. After that, I began to practice in my own way through my own process. I didn't read the Satanic Bible until I was 15, and I had no exposure to the Satanic Bible or the philosophy of the Satanic Bible until I was 15. Another thing that happens to a lot of people is they get involved in Satanism as a result of peer pressure. Well, you have to remember that I grew up in the 80s, and I didn't have that peer pressure because I couldn't contact other Satanists to have peer pressure to start with. I had to send off postal mail in the hopes of getting a response from anybody in Satanism. And if you were lucky enough to get a response, it would take 2 to 3 weeks or maybe a month before you would ever hear from anybody. And then once you asked your question and they answered it, you had to write back to them to ask another question and hope they would answer it. Because there was no internet and there was nobody to tell me how to practice, I just did what I wanted to do. And that's what I would encourage you to do. Do what you want to do. Practice how you want to practice. Believe what you want to believe. And do what feels right to you. Do what resonates with you. And don't let anyone else tell you how to practice. They have no right to tell you how to practice. They have no right to judge you. And you should never let anybody else judge your religious beliefs. I worship Satan, Lucifer, as the chief deity of my pantheon. And I believe it is Satan, Lucifer, Hasatan, who gave us free will and self-awareness. And I believe he respects the rights of the individual. So if someone tells you that the way you practice Satanism is not correct, then they're missing the whole point of Satanism and they really don't get it. And the other thing you have to bear in mind is if they're a Satanist and they're trying to tell you what to believe, you have to wonder how knowledgeable they are about Satanism and what Satanism represents. Regardless of what path you follow in Satanism, there is one belief that is almost universal, and that is the right of the individual to choose their own path in life. We believe that the right of the individual to be the master of their own destiny is sacred. And any Satanist who would suggest that what you choose to do with your life is wrong really does not understand the main principle of Satanism. And that is that you have the right to be the master of your own life and your own path. And no one has the right to interfere with that. Not even another Satanist. Well, I think that about does it for this episode. I'm trying to keep these episodes relatively short to start with because I want to populate my RSS feed with content in order to get the show off to a good start. I'll be posting a new episode every Sunday, so I hope to see you for the next one. Until then, take care.